welcome back. We are back again after a week off. We are, of course, your bearded brothers. My name is Matt.
I have a Loki.
That is Chris, and you have found yet another sports podcast. We did take a week off last week because we were busy researching for the upcoming draft at the end of this month for the NFL. Yay, draft! But before we get into that list, there is at least one piece of news we should cover, possibly more, but definitively one piece, and that is we all need to hold a moment of silence for Vontae Davis, who sadly passed away last week, and they still have not, and they are under no obligation to, but they did not. They ruled out suspicious or violent death. They do not think that it was like that at all. He was found unresponsive in his home. His brother Vernon had some interesting theories on it, but there is no actual cause that I am aware of. So that's a sad piece of news. I still never forget when he retired in the middle of the halftime in a football game.
Yeah.
That was one of those things you went, what? And by the way, I was that day's old, his death day old, when I found out that Vernon and Vontae were related. I never made that connection. Never even asked.
Nice.
I guess I'm an idiot.
It happens.
It does. The only other big news is Logan Ryan has retired. He has said he is done. And the Jaguars signed Allen off the franchise tag that they had him on. They gave him a big, I think it's 5 for 150. Oh, the only other big news, if you missed it, is two of the Patriots, an ex-Patriots offensive lineman and a current Patriots offensive lineman appeared at WrestleMania to help out the LWO.
I did see that.
And The Undertaker returned.
Well, I mean, for a brief moment, yes.
Not
very,
for a full
very
match.
brief. Very, very brief moment.
Yeah, it was still pretty cool to see both him and John Cena come back for brief moments. Everybody thought it was going to be Stone Cold.
I think it. I mean, it sounds like from everything I've heard that they were trying to get Stone Cold to do it, but then just things didn't work out.
Yeah.
And so the Undertaker just still fits into that position. Like, it would have been more interesting for it to be Stone Cold, but it makes sense for it to be the Undertaker at the same time.
I was going to say, because think about how long Stone Cold and The Rock, they have such a storied rivalry.
The history, yeah.
Yeah, and that makes that much sense. But also the Undertaker being the big daddy of the locker room for so long, and everybody knows it.
Yep.
And for those of you who don't know yet, Cody Rhodes finished the story. About time. All right. Well, today's episode is going to be us breaking down the offense for the 2024 NFL Draft and who we think could go in the first round. I feel like Chris probably has a few more people than I. Chris likes to do some deep cuts. We've already kind of talked about that a little bit. Chris likes deep cuts. I'm not into the deep cuts sometimes, but I did manage to pick out most of the people that he has deep cuts on. I just didn't put them on my list because I don't think anybody's going to, there's the potential for a reach, but I just don't see it. So, we are going to start at the bottom of our lists and work our way up. And we'll start, I guess, what do you think? Do we start with quarterbacks?
I mean, we can start with quarterbacks. It's probably the most obvious position.
May as well. Why don't you go ahead and start since you have an extra one and I do not?
I do have an extra one. I do have 7 quarterbacks that potentially could go in the first. Granted, more likely 6. The 7th is like
real dark
a
horse.
big,
And I had him as a dark
big
horse.
reach. a huge reach. It is the quarterback Spencer Rattler. Um, I could see somebody reaching for him if there is enough people in the draft who are really looking for QBs or potential future QBs. Um, he's one that you might decide to take a gamble on because he has shown that he still has some of the skill sets necessary to be a solid backup at the very bare minimum. And so if all you're looking for is a solid backup, potential bridge QB, then there you go. But you might also decide that like, well, he's got enough of the attributes that maybe he could still turn into somebody in the future and he's just not there yet. So we want him to sit behind somebody else for a couple of years. You could totally do that with him too. Um, I don't know. I just like what I saw from him, and I think he's an interesting pick. I don't think that he makes sense in the first round, but if somebody really wants him and somebody else, and then you think somebody else is going to grab him, some people might decide to push up for it. You never know.
I think from what I've seen, he has the arm talent.
Yeah.
But that's not the question to me. The question is his decision making.
Yes, because some of his decisions are questionable at times. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of that's. I think if I'm going to worry about something, that's what it is.
I could understand that. Um, I think he's overall a solid option, just not necessarily a first rounder, but you never know.
I agree with you. All right, why don't you move to number 6 so we keep this appropriately right?
All right, I'll go on to 6. This is where we're probably going to disagree. Um, at 6, I have Michael Penix Jr. Um, I think he's perfectly good QB. Um, he's got a good arm. He's he is athletic. My problem with him that I see on tape, and from what I've seen people also pick up on, is even though he has the athleticism, he doesn't use it naturally. It doesn't feel natural. Like, so for example, he's a really good pocket passer. He's not super good when he rolls out. He can be. It just doesn't look normal for somebody that's as big and as athletic as he is. It doesn't look as natural as you see like other other players will talk about further up the board that have that same kind of build who look more natural running. Is all I'm saying. Like
Mm,
there's you can tell there is something slightly off with somebody who's as big bodied as Penix Jr. is, and how fast he is. There's no reason that he shouldn't be able to unlock that side of him, but when you watch him play, he doesn't
could
have
it
that
be
as
the
much.
injuries?
It could be. I don't know. Um,
Got into his head a little?
it's possible, but so if you want him as a pure pocket passer, he's got a beautiful deep ball. He's a really good pure pocket passer. He's got some athleticism. It just feels like there's another part of him that hasn't just been fully unlocked yet. And I don't know. To be fair, I don't know if that's because of that's not what they've been asking him to do versus that's what he is doing. Um, I also don't know if if that type of offense just doesn't want him running that much. But like if you look at even just the way he feels the pocket, it's not as natural. Sometimes he gets caught up not trying to cut for a lane that doesn't exist anymore, and sometimes there are moments in the pocket where you're just like he, his awareness of where the pocket's collapsing isn't always there.
His split second behind,
Yeah.
which can
Um,
cost you.
and those are the main criticisms that I have for why I've dropped him to 6 is that like it feels like he could be so much greater and he's just got some more time to develop and cook
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm
in
not mad.
comparison to some of these other people that we'll talk about.
Okay, so my number 6, and this is again where we're going to disagree.
Yeah.
I have Bo Nix out of Oregon. And I have reasons for this. So first, let me tell you the good. He is super accurate. He has probably one of the more accurate throws I've seen in the out of the college ranks this year. Um, He's very, very good, especially on short to medium range throws. Puts the ball where only his guys can get it, especially if they're cutting over the middle of the field or they're out in the flat. He has great vision, pretty good awareness. He is now downsides. He is not the most athletic person on the field. Uh, he has some athleticism, but it's not his shining attribute. Also, he the deep ball is not there. It's okay, but it's not great. In that aspect, he reminds me a little bit, size-wise even, of a Drew Brees, which that is not a horrible comparison to make, but do remember that Drew Brees wasn't really Drew Brees until he hooked up with Sean Payton. You need the right system, you need the right offense to utilize a player of that caliber. And I think that's what my biggest knock on him is. He's just, if you try to force him to be a roll out of the pocket deep ball thrower, he's not that. Not at all. You have to draft him for what he is, which is a not pocket per se, because he can move, shuffle, slide, get out of the way of things. I think he has better awareness of where his pocket is than Penix, personally. But he doesn't throw a beautiful deep ball. It does tend to loft. He gets under it a little too much. But if you just want a guy who can dink and dunk his way downfield, which there's been several very successful quarterbacks who you use that little short to medium range passing game to loosen up your DBs and get people away from the line of scrimmage, and then have some big ass running back go plowing into the middle of them, or hit them with a screen or something. That it works incredibly well in the right system. Or you have guys that are bigger wide receivers who can take off after the catch and run people over, like Michael Thomas used to, and Jimmy Graham. Back in the days of New Orleans. So, you look at stuff like that and you think he's got potential. I think he has a really high ceiling. But if you try to do too much with him too early, he also has an incredibly low floor and could plummet all the way through it.
I got my opinions, but I'm going to save them for when we get there. Because I have a lot of things to say that I think you're definitely going to disagree with. But
if you say he has a good deep ball, I should reach through the screen and slap you, because I don't think he does.
I'm gonna make some counterpoints to prove a point, because I think some of the things you're seeing is not quite the same things I'm seeing. So we'll see. We'll see when we get there.
I definitely watched him try to throw deep balls at the combine, and it looked like ass. He only hit 1-3.
Again, that's different than on film. I watched some film tape, and I'll talk about it when we get there. I did watch some
film tape as well, and everything I saw mostly had him doing short and medium throws, and he was really good at that.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it when we get there, because I have some points to make that will maybe change your opinion, or at least make you understand. Give me something
different to think about.
Give you something to chew on, yeah.
Number 5 for you.
So my number 5 is going to be J.J. McCarthy. Now, hear me out. J.J. McCarthy is, you gotta remember, this is a pretty good quarterback class. In almost any other class, he would be top 3. It's just one of those quarterback classes that there's a lot of good QBs here, and some stand out amongst the rest, but there's clearly tiers, and you just don't quite fall in that top tier yet. He has a very high floor. He's already basically quarterback ready to play. He's wants to play the game. No, I mean like short, like Joe Burrow-esque, like first season, right? Like it wasn't great, but still played okay, right?
Maybe.
He clearly wants to play. Has a mind for the game. Very intelligent. Can move. Can throw. Has a good deep ball. pretty accurate. Like, he is, from the sound of it, sounds like a perfect QB, but obviously he's not. He doesn't have. He's got a good deep ball, but it's not an amazing deep ball. He's got good accuracy, but not great accuracy. My point is that he is above average in just about everything, but he's not a standout at any one thing, which isn't bad. That's not bad. That's a very good QB in most situations. But we just have so many other standouts this year that he's just, because he's so average, even though, well, so above average, I'll say, that he's not a standout in any one thing makes it more of like oh, okay, he's really good. Okay, gotcha. I mean, that's all I really got to say about it. I really like him. I think he's really good. He's just not quite. He's just not quite there. He's not exceptional.
I also have J.J. McCarthy at number 5 out of the University of Michigan. And I agree with you. To me, he is... If you had a nickname for him, it would be above average J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah.
He does a lot of things well. But I think the two things that I see that he excels at, if you could say he excels at anything. One, football IQ. I think he has a really high football IQ.
Yeah, he reads defenses very well.
Very high. Also, his drive to improve himself, drive to be better, drive to play the game. I think that's also incredibly high.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. He's got a high floor, but he has a potentially high ceiling as well. The problem is that you just don't know.
Yeah, I don't peg him. I know you're pegging him as an immediate starter. I don't. I think he would be better served sitting a year behind someone.
He could, yeah.
And learning the game. Because I think if you give him a year to learn a playbook and chill and just figure things out and carry the clipboard and work things through, the next year he's going to come out all systems go.
Well, I would totally understand that, but he from everything that I've heard, he sounds like Joe Burrow-esque in the way of, like, remember when Joe Burrow came in? Right away after he got drafted, he was like, give me the playbook. I'm just going to start studying my ass off right fucking now.
Yeah, and I totally expect him to do that.
And that's what I think, that's why I think Joe Burrow, when he was starting right away, was able to, is because he was just such a hard studier that he already knew enough of the easy plays and enough of the difficult plays to make it work. I think JJ has the ability to also replicate that, and his ability to read the defenses. I don't think he would be an amazing starter. I think he would just be sufficient if you needed to have a QB start right away.
Yes, but I would like to see him sitting here.
Yeah,
personally.
Like, I'm not saying that I'd want him starting. It's that he could start.
I feel better served for him would be to
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, there's other QBs above this list that I'd be like,
oh yeah,
absolutely start this person right away.
All right, well, since we agree on 5, let's go to 4.
This is obviously again where we probably flopped our picks more than likely. So at 4, I do have the kid from Oregon, Bo Nix. And I'm going to make a couple arguments.
Go ahead.
So, first, I will say is he's not a pocket passer. He can be a pocket passer. He's somebody who adapts to the system very, very well. In Oregon, they have their QBs typically running a pocket passer system, quick dunk dives. That's that offense. Now, remember, the reason why I know this, and this is where the things I think will give you something to chew on. Remember, a couple years ago, who also came out of Oregon and had questions about his ability to throw deep balls.
I didn't know that Harrington had questions to throw deep balls at that point.
Herbert?
Or Herbert. I didn't know that Joey Herbert had that question.
Yeah, he had that question. How strong is his arm? Sometimes when he throws the deep balls, it doesn't look quite all there. It looks slightly off at times. These were the exact same things that Justin Herbert had talked about him from Oregon just a couple years ago. Bo Nix, while not as athletic as Herbert, I will fully comp to that. He's just not as athletic as Herbert. But he has a lot of similarities. He is very accurate short and medium. And those passes look good. His deep ball actually looks pretty decent most of the time, not fantastic, similar to Herbert. But again, how much is that? So this is where we're coming down to that question of, is it that he's incapable of doing those things, or that the offense wasn't asking him to do those things, right? And so that's where, like, okay, I'm not saying that he is Herbert and that he does have the ability to do that deep throw really well, like Herbert obviously can. Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he can't be that good as well. We just don't know. Now, I will say that there were a couple deep balls that impressed the shit out of me. Where, like, there was one where he had his first second read, and this is one thing I will say that I love the most about Bo Nix is that he's very good on his reads. He's very quick. He goes from first, second, third, and I'm going out. Like, if there's nothing at my first, second, or third, I'm rolling out of the ball. Um, and he actually improvises very, very well out of the pocket. Anyways, one of the things that I saw that was the most impressive was that he went first read, second read, third read, saw nothing, rolled out of the pocket to the right, kept rolling around the side, saw a guy break out far left side of the field from where he was at, and he cranked that sucker 40, 50 yards down the field, cross body, deep ball, perfectly accurate. Granted, nobody else was near the wide receiver. Like, there was almost no defender. It was not a contested catch, but it was perfectly placed where the receiver kept going, and I think was able to get. I don't know if he got a touchdown or got tackled right before it, but like it was really well done pass, and it made me wonder. Okay, is that the exception to the rule where you just happen to have a really good deep ball, or does he more often than not have good deep balls? They just don't ask him to do it that often. I was kind of in the 50-50. I saw some really good deep balls. I saw some contentious throws. I saw a lot of 50-50s that made me wonder if that's the system just in the way that they were calling, or they don't have the wide receivers that break out as often. I don't know. But from what I see is I see a guy who went to the system, was able to become a 1-2-3 system back and roll out and rely on the athleticism as a second resort rather than his first resort. Where, if I remember right, he transferred in from a different school
Auburn.
where he was more athletic, less of a system QB. It didn't work out as well. They just flopped those around, and it works out really well. Where he can, okay, I'm gonna go through my reads very naturally, roll out, try to make something work if I can. If I can't, I still have my legs that I can rely on for a little bit. Like, he's not super quick, but he's a lot better than Kirk Cousins. Put it
Well,
that way.
yeah, but I mean, if you compare anybody to Kirk Cousins, you're gonna go, okay, yeah, they're more athletic than Kirk Cousins.
Okay, I think he's probably on the same vein as a Dak.
I'd put him
Maybe a
just a little
slightly
little under
slightly
that.
less athletic, but fairly close. Like the closest comp probably
Brock
in the
Purdy,
NFL. I think he's a little more athletic than Purdy.
but right around
I think
that area, I think.
well,
Maybe
that's what I'm
just a
saying,
little
kind of in between
somewhere
those two.
between Dak and Brock.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
like that's what I see, and so I see somebody who's got some good athleticism, who's very accurate short to medium, has the deep ball potentially. If it gets unlocked, depending on like, it's just one of those guys that I see actually has a really good floor with a potentially really high ceiling. The difference is how much does he want it? How much does he want to play? How much drive does he have? I can't say that for certain, but he seems like he enjoys himself. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not saying that he's Herbert. I'm saying that he seems to have a lot of the same question marks about him that Herbert did, and I find that very fascinating. Obviously, coming from the same school, and I think that'll be very interesting and very telling if it turns out Bo Nix is also just as good, or potentially in a similar vein with the same questions, and it just makes you wonder how is that due to Oregon properly scouting and just knowing what to look for, or is that Oregon training? But that's actually going through. It's just an interesting theory. Is all I'm saying. It'd be an interesting thought process.
I'm not saying anything wrong. You're at least given food for thought, which, that's good. You see it this way, I see it a different one. And that's acceptable. We're people.
I mean,
We did this
We
last
are
year too.
we are people.
We did this last year. I believe we disagreed vehemently about. Oh, was it the Mayo Man's deep ball and its accuracy?
Yeah, it turned out it's actually pretty decent.
Decent, and then you were the one who was all like, who was the one that went first overall, and you were like, oh yeah, he deserves to be first overall. I was like, no,
No, remember, I thought C.J. Stroud deserved it more.
you know,
I was actually the one that actually said C.J. Stroud should be the number one pick, even though it's going to be Bryce.
well, you put Bryce number one on your list. We can go.
Yeah,
back
because I knew that he was going to get picked number one. I didn't think that he deserved number one.
All right. So my number 4, of course, is Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. What I see in Penix, I see very good arm strength. I see very good vision. I see weirdly good accuracy sometimes. Like there's balls he's throwing down near the end zone where he puts it. Yeah, the receiver's toe tapping, but it's in a position where the DB's got no play on the ball. None. The only person that can make a play on that ball is his receiver. That's it. There's nobody else that's going to make a play on that ball. So I'm really a big fan of that. He is athletic, and it is weird how he doesn't. When he's running, he doesn't look athletic.
No.
It's like he's trying to force himself to run. I think, personally, I think some of the knee injuries he's had have scared him away from contact. He looks sometimes a little too jittery in the pocket. But overall, I think some of that can be dealt with at the next level. I think you just need somebody to sit him down and calm him down. And I think that's the potential. I think he's got a great arm. I think that his abilities are really good. I really like what I see out of him, and I think his bad habits can be dealt with. Yeah, some of his accuracy, some of his things may come from the fact that he was thrown to Romo Dunze. Because if you have someone like that to throw to, maybe you look better than you should.
I think that's funny how often that is a question mark. But that shouldn't be
No.
necessarily a thing to nick against somebody either too, because like
No,
a lot
no,
of people
no, no.
had that. No, I'm not saying you are, but I'm just saying I know that some people do that sometimes. Where they'll be like, well, of course, because they're playing with so and so, of course they look really good.
Like the last
Well,
guy
remember,
did that
'cause, like,
too.
Joe Burrow, right?
No.
The last person I remember a lot of people doing that about was Joe Burrow. They're like, well, of course he's throwing to Jefferson and fucking the guy. Oh, what's his Jamar Chase. Right? Like, so, like, people were like, well, of course he looked amazing. And then he went off to the NFL and played really well without him, and then got Jamar Chase and still plays really well. Like, he was always going to be good without those guys.
The last
like,
person I ever said that about was somebody you wanted the Vikings to pick that I was glad they never did. Mac Jones. I said he had 2 really all-world otherly wide receivers in Judy and Devonta Smith. And I was like, look, I get that you still have to have some accuracy and you have to have some moxie to play quarterback at Alabama, but without those 2, are we really talking about him as a first-round pick? And the answer to me was no, and I was right.
well, I actually am still not so sure, because remember, that Patriots first year that he was on it was actually pretty good first year. That was a pretty good first year.
It was an okay first year, and then the rest of the time, he just went down the tube.
No,
and
I know, but I
don't know if I blame him or if I blame the
I was going to say, I
Patriots.
don't blame him for that, because, like, nothing was built around him. Everything was always constantly being shuffled around. I think he played a really good first year with talent that wasn't that great. I think he's perfectly still good. I don't know if he's been ruined now, though, due to the...
Yeah, I don't know mentally if he...
But I think, like, if he goes to a lot of other teams, potentially sits a year, I think he could end up being good.
And
but
we'll see we'll see if theories like that are hold true, because we'll see how
it happened to
Darnold
Baker.
works out. It did happen to Baker. We'll see how
Baker
it
found
works
his
out
home.
for Darnold.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're not Darnold's Panthers.
We know that he's not staying here. Everyone knows he's not staying.
Well, I mean, like I said, when Baker had to go to the Panthers first and didn't look good, before he
Yeah,
got.
but remember, Darnold was also on the
He
Panthers
was,
already.
but hopefully, if it's the Baker thing, hopefully we're not that. All right.
Well,
Anyway,
nah.
but no, the biggest red flag I have with Penix, of course, are the injuries that he has suffered in college.
Yeah.
It's been some big ones. I think that is going to cause him to slip quite a bit. Um, Frankly, I think he has the talent, and potentially, if he gets I think he's going to need a head shrinker, if nothing else, a therapist to help him get over some of the. Because I think there are some mental issues, and I think some of it may come from those injuries. And I can't help but wonder if he doesn't have some trauma associated with them. So if it wouldn't be better if he got some therapy for that, you know, and that might help him out in the long run. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But there are the issues you noted, but I think that his physical talents, especially with throwing the ball, can overcome a lot of that.
It can. It's just that with the combined of everything else, that's the why I dropped him is just because like
No,
I
I
have enough
understand, and it's the
complaints.
same. You and I both
You
have
know,
the different views on it. I'm more positive on Penix. You're more positive on Nix. Either way, I think they're both going to be pretty good QBs at the next level.
probably.
All right, moving on to number 3.
So this is where like the clear gap happens here, right?
Yes.
Um,
Now it's just a
I
matter of
think
how did you rank 2 and 3, because we all know who one is.
yeah, I was gonna say if we're looking at gaps, we have one here, right? 2 and 3 are probably down here. There is a decent gap here, but then from 2 to 3 to like 4, 5, 6 is like off the fucking screen.
Yeah.
Like in comparison to day one ready starters, don't necessarily have to be day one ready, but they definitely are. They definitely could be. Like if you definitely need a QB right fucking now, one of these guys would be your best option to go with.
So who do you have at
Um,
3?
so at 3, I do have Drake May at 3. I thought about having him at 2, and I kept flip flopping 2 and 3 around. Ultimately, I stuck with May at 3 because I think he's got a really good floor, and he's got a pretty moderate ceiling. Where I think the ceiling for 2 is significantly higher, even though his floor is lower, if that makes sense, and that's
It
how I kind of
does.
weighted
I
it.
totally understand.
Um, but man, Drake May is just something special. Like he's he is basically JJ McCarthy on steroids, which feels weird to say. He's not above average at everything. He's really good at almost everything, and he's even got exceptional things about him. Like his decision making is fucking amazing. His ability to read the pocket and immediately start moving out and make plays on his legs. Like I'm not gonna say he's the white Patrick Mahomes because he's not, but he has that similar playing style of I'm going to find a way to make it work. And he just quite often does. Now, he's more ready than Patrick Mahomes. He goes through more of his progressions. Patrick Mahomes quite often feels there's another person on this list that I think is a closer comparison to Patrick Mahomes with the way that he plays, but Drake May is one of those guys that's constantly trying to develop the play and making it work in that same fashion, in that same play style. Um, and he's just I don't know. He's really really good, but there are just some things that are a little awkward. So like his throwing motion, a little awkward at times. He doesn't always set his feet before he throws, so sometimes he has slight weird accuracy issues. Sometimes he's forcing plays that he really shouldn't be forced. But I don't know how much of that is on him versus some of the play calling, because I know from where he's coming from, they're a very aggressive, very loose based play calling. And so I don't know how many of those decisions are necessarily on him versus the plays that he was asked to perform. Um, so there are some things that I would like to see cleaned up. Mostly footwork, some slight accuracy things here and there, but like I'm talking very minor things. Like these are very very minor in the grand scheme of things. He's really quite good.
I also have Drake May from UNC, University of North Carolina, at number 3. Everything you just said, I agree with. I think he has great arm strength and accuracy. Very able to put the ball right where he wants it to go, unless he doesn't set himself because he's trying to roll out of the pocket and do something ridiculous.
Yeah.
He has really good vision. I think what I was most taken aback by, or most uh, impressed with, was his release. It's so fast.
Yeah.
He gets
The
the
release is
ball
very
out of
quick,
his
yeah.
hand so quickly.
Yeah.
And that's going to really help him at the next level. I mean, he can move around a bit. He doesn't have a problem taking off and running a little bit with the ball, put his shoulder down, get it an extra couple of yards. I mean, yeah, I like him. I like him. I think he's got the athleticism. I think he's got a little bit of chutzpah, chutzpah, whatever you want to say. And, you know, I have no problem believing that he could be a day one starter. But he is the number 3 to me. I didn't flip flop probably as much as you did after watching tape. Look, I like the kid. I think he's got a lot going for him. I think Drake May is going to be a very, very good, probably all-pro quarterback for someone for quite a number of years.
Probably.
So that's what I say at it.
Fair enough. Okay, then I guess we'll just go on to 2, which we probably we have the same
I'm
one
sure
at
we
this
agree
point.
on.
So at number 2 we have Jaden Daniels from LSU. The reason why, so like I was saying, is that he's got his floor isn't there like Drake Mays is. You could still start Jaden Daniels right away and still have success, but he's definitely somebody I wouldn't want to if I didn't have to. Um, my biggest issue with him at the moment is that he feels very 1-2 ready quarterback. Like, I'm gonna quickly read 1-2, don't like it, I'm rolling out and running. And the thing is, he gets away with it because
He's fast.
I mean, he's fast, he's very athletic. It's crazy. He might still be able to do that also in the NFL. But the thing is that I worry a little bit of him being too quick on his reads and giving up too quickly on the play before it's developed fully. We'll see how that goes in the NFL. But man, if he probably develops a quick 1-2-3 then rollout before giving up, like being able to extend the play and not give up on the play until it absolutely has to, kind of thing. Like if he develops that ability to kind of almost slow himself down a little bit, because it's almost like he's trying to make the play move quicker than it's supposed to, kind of thing. If he slows his mental clock down just a tad bit, I think you got something very special there, because he's got a great arm in the pocket. He's got a great arm out of the pocket. He's able to move very, very cleanly, very smoothly. It's very, people say deer-like, but I just think natural is the best way to put it. Very natural, very, very smooth motion. Um, Makes people miss pretty easily. He's not somebody who's typically gonna like run through people, but he's big enough that he's hard to tackle sometimes. Like he's kind of like one of those guys, right? So I I just see a lot of good potential. He just needs a little bit of time to develop certain things. And it's mostly like mindset and internal clock and kind of like, and that's just mostly a coaching thing. He just needs to sit down with the right coach to help get him through his paces, so to speak.
And also, you were correct. At number 2, I have Jaden Daniels from LSU. Um, what I see, he's got a great arm, very powerful, very strong. He's got pretty good accuracy. And again, I noted that same thing. He is what I would call a natural runner. Like the way he sees the running lanes in the field feels almost like the way a running back looks at it.
Yep.
He just has the ability to know where the defenders are going to be rather than reacting. He's acting, knowing what they're going to do before they do it. And I like that out of him. And again, they could just be the system they're playing at LSU, where it's 1 read, 2 read, go.
It's
Because,
possible. Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. When you're looking at Malik Neighbors and Williams, Brian, what is it? Brian Williams Jr.
Brian Thomas Jr.
Brian Thomas Jr. Yes. When you're looking at Neighbors and Thomas, I mean, one read, two read. Okay, they're covered. I'm out of here. Although that's not going to happen as often as you would think. So, I mean, the big knock that I have on him is he needs to learn how to slide to extend his career.
True. He just likes to push through plays, yeah.
He does, and that's not going to go well for him if we've learned anything from, what's his name, from Florida State or Florida or whatever last year. The Colts guy.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, the name's escaping me right now, but yeah, he kind of hurt himself, got himself knocked loopy. Richardson,
Yeah. Alexander, or no, Anthony Richardson.
Anthony Richardson knocked himself loopy this last year. So yeah, I would say if I was coaching him, learn to slide, kid. It'll extend your career. Also, I would do the same thing they've tried to do with Lamar, which is slow yourself down, try to make a couple extra reads, and then take off. You're fast enough that they're not going to catch you.
Yep.
Roll out, try to extend the play, find a way to do that, keep your eyes downfield, and then run.
Exactly.
That'll help extend your career and make it longer. Now, I also know that weird photograph's been floating around the internet, and let's discuss that for 30 seconds here. I think it's a Photoshop. I think it's garbage.
I guess I don't know which one you're talking about.
It's the one where he's throwing the ball and it looks like his elbow is completely dislocated and disjointed because there's like this hoop coming off the far end of his elbow, and you're just like, that looks like a bad Photoshop job.
Could be.
If you look up Jaden Daniels' elbow photo, you'll find it.
Yeah. I don't put much stock in most of that stuff.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
If that was even remotely true, a lot of teams would be dropping them off their board.
Yeah. So everybody knows it's a piece of crap. All right. Number one.
I mean, number one is pretty obvious. We both probably have him. It is Caleb Williams from USC. I mean, if you want the actual comp, it would be Patrick Mahomes. Like he's super athletic. He just makes you miss him whenever you're trying to hit him, and just makes ridiculous throw after ridiculous throw.
I saw one. I'm gonna break in because I do Caleb Williams as well at number one.
Yeah.
He rolled out to the right side, and he rolled all the way over to the sideline. And he just kept making people miss, and then he threw across his body.
Yeah.
All the way across to the other side of the field, like 30 yards downfield, to a receiver who was wide open. You're just like, what? How? You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, he's an interesting player. I mean, I'm not gonna talk about all the great things because he pretty much excels at a lot of things, mainly pocket presence, being able to move around, extend plays, all that stuff. He's got good accuracy. He's got some issues with the deep ball on occasions, but it's mostly good. And in mid to short range, obviously, I mean, he's got a missile. It's fine. But I want to talk about just my two biggest issues with him going into this thing. So one of them is that he knows that he's a good player, and he will force things in ways that he should never force balls. And he sometimes gets away with it. But I'm telling you, some of those things he's not getting away with in the NFL.
No.
So I'm a little worried about, is he going to be able to adjust very quickly to that? Or is he going to still try to force some of those things that he really shouldn't be doing? And my second issue is a bit of an attitude, right? Like, he knows he's that good kind of thing, right? But the attitude comes across very poorly. And it comes across as like, I am so amazing, I'm so great, that I don't need to do the things that normally everyone else has to do because I'm that good. And it just comes across kind of cocky and poorly and can rub people the wrong way. And then if you start getting shit on, like if you go to a bad team, say you go to the Bears, and you don't have a good time, and things don't go well, man, you're lining yourself up to just get shit on.
I was gonna say the red flags that I said he even reminds me of Mahomes in the red flags department, as both family and attitude are giant red flags with him.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I was like, he's literally walking down that road. Now, I will say this. If he goes into Chicago his first year and they win 8 games, even if they miss the playoffs, if they win 8
Oh,
games, the fans in Chicago are going to throw him a ticker tape parade. Then
For
the
a
next
first
year,
year,
you need
yeah.
to make the playoffs.
I was gonna say, yeah,
That's gonna be
except
the
for you're gonna have
thing.
high expectations the next year,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gotta have high hopes. Sorry.
Yeah, you should.
But yeah, no, I don't think those red flags will keep Chicago from taking him. I think it's pretty clear that he is going to be their pick. And I don't think there's a chance in hell anybody dethrones him.
Probably not.
All right, we want to
Probably
do
not.
running backs?
Do you want to go to running backs?
We can go to running backs.
Okay. I only got 3 running backs on my
I
list.
also have 3, so I'll start this time.
All right.
My number 3 is Blake the Great Corum from University of Michigan. He's probably not going to be a first rounder unless somebody at the bottom of the first reaches for him. But he has really good speed and he has good vision for a running back. And for a dude who's only 5'8", he does not have a problem bowing up and trying to run over 6'4", 230-pound dudes. So that kind of heart and attitude, that feistiness will probably serve him well, but I'm worried that he's going to get hurt if he keeps that attitude up. He does slip in and out of tackles, mostly due to his size. It's hard to get a hold of him. He does have pretty good hands. But yeah, I like him. I don't think he's a first rounder, but he's got all the heart and talent to be a first rounder, if that makes any sense at all.
I gotcha. I don't have him on my list, so just be honest with you.
Okay.
At number 3, I have Braylon Allen. I think he's just an interesting here. Let me pull up his school since I don't think you have him on
I
your
don't
list.
at all.
Actually.
I don't even know who that is.
Let me pull him up real quick. So he is the running back for the Wisconsin Badgers.
Okay.
Over. Yep. And he's just my obvious concerns with him is that I believe, if I remember right, he did have a knee injury. Was it a knee injury or an ACL?
I think it was me.
I think it was just a knee injury a couple of years ago. I think it's been like 3 years or something since like he's had the injury. But I think still some people are obviously like concerned about that. But he's actually been like really good, a very strong power runner. Like he's gonna run people over. Like he's just a big dude. 6'2", 245. Like it doesn't sound big for a running back though. It's a pretty stout guy. Like so he was just kind of fun to watch. I don't know. I mean, depending on what kind of offense you're running, you might decide to go for somebody like this because he is a power runner. If you want somebody who's just going to run through the line and bulldoze his way through people, this is kind of what you're looking for. Obviously, if you're looking for a speeder, this is not what you're looking for. And this is why I put him in here. I don't think he's a first rounder, but he could be a first rounder for the right team that's looking specifically for that style of running back.
I can see that. All right. Number 2. If you're done.
Yeah, I know, you're good.
Okay. I wanted to be sure. I didn't want to step on you.
I know you're good.
Number 2. Jonathan Brooks from the University of Texas. Here's what I had to say about him. Good power, decent speed, good vision, tends to make his own hole rather than waiting for one. He's not a great receiver, mostly catching out in the flat, but didn't see him run a whole lot of routes downfield, unlike the guy that he took over for.
Yeah.
He is not that guy. But overall, he's not bad. He can catch if you need him to. He does lack what I would call breakaway speed, but he's what I would call the solid all-round back. He can do a lot of things and do them well. He doesn't really excel at any one thing, but from what I saw, he's got a lot of potential just because there's so many things he can do. He's like a Swiss Army back.
I can understand that. I also, at number 2, have Jonathan Brooks. Um, I'm kind of in the same agreement. I think the thing... Excuse me. I think the thing that he does excel at, actually, there's one thing, and I think it's the way that he reads the field.
I could see that.
So his ability to make cuts at the proper time in the right ways is really good. Now, granted, like you said, he doesn't always wait for a hole to make those cuts, but when he does, it turns out to be typically pretty good.
I will agree with that.
He rarely gets hit for a loss. Put it that way.
Like, yeah, he's almost always moving.
Most of the time, he's always making some amount of yards. So,
yep. I can agree with
So I think that's what makes him good, is that he's above average in just about everything, but he excels at a little bit of that vision. So
I can agree. All right, and then my number 1 spot is taken up by Trey Benson from Florida State University. Look, if there's a guy who can be said to have breakaway speed and good agility, it's Trey Benson. He is going to juke you out of your shoes, leave them over there, and then he's going to take off up that way, and you're not going to catch him. He's really fast. He has really good hands. Not really good, but for a running back, he has pretty good hands out of the backfield as a receiver. Now, he's not a power back. He is not going to run anybody over. But he will run around people. He will.
He'll act like he's going to run through you, though.
and then you're going to leave your jock strap on the other side of the field.
Like, the amount of times I see him look like he's going to try to run through somebody and then just, like, sidesteps around him, it's just like...
Yeah.
Every time.
Every time. Like, oof. Very, like I said, lacks some power, but makes up for it with speed and shiftiness.
Yeah.
He's definitely going to need to go to a team that has a good run blocking scheme, though, because he is not making his own hole. So you definitely need somebody to open the hole for him.
I mean, yes and no. I'll get to that, because there was some plays
if you run him outside, he's a little buried, like, there's a little bit, I'm not going to compare it entirely, but there's a little Barry Sanders in him.
Yeah.
The ability to just make people go, like, wait, how is he still on his feet?
Well, there's that, and just because
his first
obviously
step is ridiculously fast.
His first step's really good, but like, so to obviously make the point, obviously my number 1 is also Trey Benson. Obviously, there's no question that he should be a first-round pick. I'm surprised that people are talking about him being a second-round pick. Like, that baffles my brain. Like, if there is a clear number 1 running back, there's no question it's this guy. I think people are concerned due to an injury he did sustain. I think he did have an ACL a couple of years ago.
I think so, but it doesn't seem to have affected him a whole lot.
It doesn't seem like it's mattered at all, but I think people are still worried about that for some reason. And on top of that, the couple plays that I saw is that even when the hole wasn't there, I saw him literally squeeze through a small little hole. Like, he doesn't need a big hole to fit through. Like,
no.
You just need to give him little tiny ones. You don't even have to have good run blocking.
Gone.
I was gonna say, you don't even have to have good run blocking. You just need to have sufficient run blocking, and he'll find a way through that little hole. Like, it was crazy seeing him squeeze through some of the holes I saw him squeeze. I was just like, how did you part someone's legs and run under them or something? Like, what the fuck just happened here? Like, it was crazy. I just don't. Yeah, he's by far the best running back in this class, and he should be a first rounder for sure.
All right. Wide receivers?
Yeah, we can go on wide receivers.
You'll start on this one because you have 3 that I don't, but that I picked them out and I said which ones were going to be on your list. I want to talk real quick though. One guy that neither of us have on our list that I think is a dark horse that could be in here is Brendan Rice from USC. I think he's got great hands. He's got pretty good speed. He's got pretty good field awareness. And I think it helps that the guy who's been coaching him how to catch the football is Jerry Rice, his father.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Your turn, sir.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
I'm just pulling up stuff because obviously knowing that I have some people on my list that you don't, I just want to make sure that
I probably know what school they're from most of the time.
I was gonna say I just want to pull up the school just to make sure. Um, all right. So my first wide receiver at number 9, because I have 9 of them. I almost had 10, decided not to. Is Xavier Legate.
South
I
Carolina?
believe South Carolina. Yep, the Gamecocks. And I just he's just how do I describe him? He's an interesting wide receiver. I'll put it that way. Like he's got all of the right skill sets. He's a big, strong back. He's not the fastest or the quickest, but he's good at fighting for the ball and getting those extra yards. Put it that way. Like
Terrell Owens?
he's yeah, kind of. Like he's not super quick or super fast, but like he's really good at coming down with the ball. And he just looks good. I don't know. I just didn't I don't know. I like his obviously his biggest knocks to me is that he isn't the fastest. He isn't super quick. He's not going to be a deep ball guy in my mind. Like he really isn't. But like he's got great hands for that like short to medium passes, like almost I don't want to say a slot guy, but like almost in that similar vein, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's honestly why I put him on the list because I just thought he
that
was
makes
just.
a lot of sense. I'm not mad
I think
at that.
there are definitely like. I think there are teams that could definitely find a use for this guy. He's not your number 1, but he's definitely like as good or potentially as good as a good 2. Like he's a good secondary guy that you know's got good hands, kind of thing, you know. All right, so I'm gonna move on to 8. I don't know how many you have, so
6.
okay, I'm gonna move on to 8. And I put this guy on the list simply due to his speed because, holy crap! So we're gonna talk about Xavier Worthy from Texas. Um, like, if there's ever a guy that
4-2 something,
4.21, yeah,
4.21. Yep, he broke
like
the 40 record.
he's very raw. Like he's almost DK Metcalf levels. Like super fast, not the most developed prospect, right? And that's kind of like that's kind of his closest comp that I see him as a high potential, right? He's similar to a high potential in a DK Metcalf, where if you develop him and you give him the time in the league, he could be that guy who can be your 50-50 ball guy and just come down with it all the time and just he's super fast and he's just going to be there. But he could also end up being the guy who can just run really fast down the field, and so he'll be your kickoff return guy.
You know what that actually does remind me of? Guy, I'm
Who?
going to go way back on you. You're probably not going to remember him. Azazir Akeem.
That actually sounds familiar.
I think he played for both the Lions and the Panthers.
Mm,
Chris
okay.
Berman used to call him, Azazir!
Jesus.
I love Chris Berman. I miss that dude. Anyway. So that's your number 8?
That's my number 8.
Who's your number 7?
Let's move on to number 7. So my number 7 is oopsies. Oops. There we go. Is Keon Coleman out of Florida State.
I do have him on
And
my list.
oh, okay. So I just have him lower on my list than
Oh, I
you do
have him
then.
really high up.
I think he's a really good wide receiver. I just don't think he's amazing, if that makes sense. Like he's 6'4", 215. Like he's a big dude who can move really quite well for how big of a dude he seems like he is. Um, but I don't know. There's some things that I just feel like he's missing from his game. Sometimes it's just not quite there, if that makes sense. Like, for example, even though he's a quick dude, he's not the fastest dude. Not even close.
Not fast on his 40. I think he's way
No.
faster than what his 40 would indicate.
Yeah, but I'm just saying in general that he's not super fast. He's got pretty good hands. I'm kind of in that weird middle ground again with he's really good, but he doesn't like excel at anything, if that makes sense. Like he's a good pickup. He's a better Xavier Legate. He's really good at everything, but he's not going to be like your super skilled. He's not like your number one star wide receiver. He's going to be a really good third or a really good second. I just don't see him as a star player.
I don't know what tape you were watching.
Telling you what I saw. I think he's really, really, he's got a high potential ceiling. He's just, I don't know. Right. I just have a bunch of other people above him.
Okay. Who do you have at number 6?
So at 6, I have who I deemed and actually called out on as being the best route runner in the class, no questions. And that is the wide receiver out of Georgia, Ladd McConkey, which I know you don't even have on your list,
Nope,
I don't think.
Nope, that one I don't have on my list.
He is legitimately one of the best route runners I've ever seen. Like, he's not super fast. He's not super quick, but he's really good at running his routes. Like, I don't know how to describe it without it sounding bad, because, like, you're like, well, man, that just sounds like he's just good at doing his job. And he is, but he's really fucking exceptional at it. Like, he's
route
always...
running is a very underrated skill.
It is. He's really, really exceptional at it. And so he's quite often open on the short to mid passes that are quick because he's just got that quick route running ability. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So he's not a deep threat guy, but he's really, really good short to medium.
All right. My number 6 is probably going to surprise you. Because my number 6 is Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. And here's why he's number 6. He's not a bad receiver, and he would rate much, much higher if I ever saw him run a route.
Okay, fair.
Everything I see from him is, boo, I'm going downfield and I'm going to run right by you. Boo, I'm going downfield and I'm going to run right by. I never watched him make a contested catch. I never watched him run a route. I have no idea if he's even capable of it. Because he's just that fast. The problem is there are guys that are going to be that fast in the NFL, and what's going to happen when he gets jammed up at the line by a bigger cornerback that can still move with him? What's going to happen when he runs into one of these guys who can keep up with him? I don't know, because I haven't seen it at the college ranks. That's my biggest problem. My knock on him is I have no idea what else he's capable of, because all I ever saw was him just take off at breakneck speed and run down the field. Look.
That's fair.
That's a great skill to have, but unless you're Randy Moss, it is not something you can rely on.
Fair.
That's my analysis.
Oh, that's your 6?
That's my whole analysis. Like, he does have good hands from what I saw. He's great at catching the deep ball. He can go deep on any play and rip the top off the stadium. I'm not even going to, like, you want somebody who can take the top off? Brian Thompson Jr. is your guy. If you're not worried about a route running guy who can make contested catches, and you just want somebody for that deep ball when you need it, man, you could not go wrong with this. So, like, if you've already got a guy that works underneath and does all the hard, gritty route running type of crap, but he's not to take the top off the guy, and you need to take the top off the stadium guy, this is what you want.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay, number 5.
So, I'll go on to 5 then. So I picked up at 5 a wide receiver out of Texas, Adonai Mitchell, at 5, and I think he's really good at everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how better way to word that, because he's quite fast. He's not super fast, but he's quite fast. He's really good at route running. He's got great hands. He can run almost any route. Like, you legitimately could have him as your number 1 wide receiver, because he can do just about anything. Like, honestly, in almost any other draft, he would be top 3, if not top 1, in a lot of other drafts. Like, this is just how loaded this wide receiver stacked room is, right? Or the stacked draft is. Like, it's hard to find anything super wrong with him outside of the other guys that above him are just a little bit better in other ways. And that's really what it comes down to.
I also have Adonai Mitchell at number 5 from the University of Texas. My literal things: sneaky good speed, great hands, excellent route runner, makes the catches he's not supposed to make.
Yeah.
Could be a sneaky good grab at the bottom of the first round.
Oh yeah, like if managed to pick him up, if they don't trade up, for example, if Minnesota doesn't trade up and they pick at 11 because for whatever reason maybe they decide to hold off, like maybe JJ slips, maybe Bo Nix slips, maybe Penix Jr. slips, and they decide to grab one of them at 11, right? And then we still have our other pick. I could see them using that pick to pick up potentially another wide receiver now that we've moved off of like KJ, for example.
Yeah.
They might decide to pick up another person.
Dude, Adonai Mitchell would be...
And a Mitchell would be a great. Because I don't think you're going to get most of these other guys above Mitchell, but Mitchell could still potentially be there.
Yeah. All right. Number 4.
So at number 4, I have Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. Now, the reason why I have him, you could probably actually swap him and Adonai Mitchell, in my opinion. Like, the difference is that if you, like you were saying, if you know you need a deep ball guy, I literally called him the deep ball king. Like, he is, as you described him, basically going to be the Randy Moss, or attempt to be the Randy Moss of the league, right? Or like Tyreek Hill-esque, where like, I'm just going to run straight down the field as fast as I can. And you're going to try to keep up with me. Yeah. And the thing is, while it is a concern that can he route run, it's more of a concern of can people catch him? Because if they can, then he does need to route run. If they can't, then it doesn't matter. He'll just be Tyreek Hill. Like, he's just... That's what I see him as. He's just that guy that, like, if you need a deep ball guy, there's no one else that you're looking for. This is him.
All right. Well, my number 4 is Rome Odunze from Washington. Look, what I said here. I think he's got good speed. It's not stellar, but it's pretty good. He's got pretty good hands. They're not the best hands, but they're really good. He's also got the ability to run some good routes. He can also get down the field a bit. The one knock on him that I have is that after he makes the catch, he seems to struggle to get away from his pursuers. He's going to make the catch, and he's going to hold on to the ball. But he doesn't tend to break away very often. If you get your hands on him, he's going down. He doesn't have wiggle out capabilities. I think he's an incredibly smart player. He knows what his skills are. He knows where the sidelines are, and he knows where he needs to be to catch the ball. And I think that's an incredibly underrated talent. So I think he's going to prosper very well at the next level. I think he's good at just about anything you want to do. I think he could pull off.
Yeah, I can see that. So at 3, I have Roma Dunze. Because for all the things that you said, I just think he's just a little bit higher on my list, obviously. He's just really good at almost everything outside of he doesn't have the breakneck acceleration to be able to go from a slow catch into a quick yards after catch situation. He needs enough space to be able to get up to speed, and he just most of the time
Doesn't have
doesn't
it.
have the time to do that. Yeah, but he is fantastic at contested catches. Like if you need a guy to go up for a 50-50 ball and know that your guy is going to come down with it 75% of the time, like, it's Roma Dunze. Like that's who you go. That's who you throw to. Like he's just that good.
All right, my number 3. This is where I put Keon Coleman out of Florida State.
Man, you and
And
I could not be so
we
far
did
apart on
not
this.
see eye to eye on this. This I
Not
think
at
is
all.
the biggest gap we've had.
Yeah, I
and
don't know. Now I have to ask you what your tape you're watching.
what did I
'cause there's-
watch?
I thought it was a couple spaces up, not
I
not
watched him.
nearly
I
5
watched
spaces.
him, and I
That's
saw
crazy.
an athletically gifted freak of nature. Um, he's a lot faster, plays a lot faster than with the 4.640. He's got the ability to climb the ladder, make ridiculous catches. I was like, how the did he come down with that? Like every tape play I was watching, I was just like, where did he get? Did he catch that one-handed? What is he? What? Almost every play made me say, what? I mean, watching his highlight film, and I was like, this kid's got talent. He caught everything that came around him, one hand, two hands, 50-50 balls. I don't know if we just watched different tapes. I don't know if you saw a different package than I did. But what I saw...
All I can say is that a lot of people are looking at draft rankings are in the same boat that I am. They are not saying the same things you are.
No, they're not. And that's okay.
So
Maybe I saw one that was specifically tailored to show off his ridiculousness. And that could be.
I don't know.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
say that you're wrong and I'm right, or that I'm right and you're wrong, or that I'm the...
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I don't know either. But what I saw really turned my head and made me think that he's got hops, he's got okay speed, he can route run, he's got really good vision after the catch. I think there's something there. I don't know how much is there. That's the problem. I think he has an incredibly high ceiling. However, I think you're right. He's also got a really low floor and could really fuck it all up.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see. I assume our 2 and 1 will probably be the same. If
They
they're
should be.
not, I'm going to slap the shit out of you.
I would slap you too.
Because people that are saying that this is even contestable between
not.
1 and 2
It's
is
not.
it's not. It's not even
It's not.
close. Not even close. People that are trying to argue are just wrong.
You're wrong.
Number 2 is definitely Malik Neighbors. Don't get me wrong, Malik Neighbors is fantastic. Any other class would be number 1.
Oh, yes.
But against the number 1 person we'll talk about in a second, no, you just don't stand a chance. Now, this isn't to say that Malik Neighbors isn't another wide receiver out of LSU that is like another star waiting to happen, because he is. That's what he is. He's another number 1 wide receiver out like, he might not go number 1, but he is a number 1. Like that's the best way to explain it. Like he can literally play any wide receiver position. He can catch from deep, from mid to short. He can do just about anything you ask him to do. Like there's not a lot of faults with him, to be completely honest with you.
No,
Like
there is
I'm trying to
not.
think about it, and there
I can't
isn't
find
really
it.
anything to complain about. The only thing I can complain about is that he isn't the number 1 guy, who when we get to, like, is just that little bit much better in everything. Like, it's just hilarious.
Yeah. And I literally said, any other year, and this, he'd go first off. He'd be the first wide receiver off the board.
Yeah, no questions.
But it's Malik Neighbors is number 2 for me as well. LSU, great hands, great speed, good route running, shows great burst after the catch, knows where his sidelines are, knows how to make the catches. Yeah. Any other year, he's the first wide receiver off the board, no questions asked. Unfortunately, this year, There is the son of a Hall of Fame wide receiver. You want to say it?
Yeah. I mean, everyone knows it's Marvin Harrison Jr. Like it's
Marvin
not
Harrison
even
Jr. out of Ohio State.
it's not even close in my opinion. He's he's big, he's fast. His spectacular catch is honestly spectacular. He makes catching look easy.
Yes, it's like he's playing the football on easy mode.
Yeah, he just makes it look easy. And I just haven't seen someone that's that dominant in a while. There's no way he's not going to transition into the NFL and be a number one right off the bat. I'd be shocked to see that.
As I literally put it, kid is a franchise-changing wide receiver.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, look, everybody has to know. Dude. If the quarterback class was a weak class this year, he would have the potential to go number one overall.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not a weak quarterback class. It's a really good quarterback class. So
it's a good quarterback class, and there's unfortunately a lot of teams that need QBs.
All right. I'm going to talk about some tight ends now because you didn't do any tight ends.
I did not do any tight ends.
And I have two. So at number 2, I have Jatavian Sanders out of Texas. He has pretty good hands. He's a decent route runner. He's actually a pretty good blocker, which in the highlight tapes I saw, they actually went out of their way to accentuate that he can block, too. In fact, if this class didn't have the guy going number 1, he probably would be the first tight end off the board. And he has the ability to just run over people. He's a big guy. Unfortunately for him, number 1 is Brock Bowers out of Georgia. And, he can do everything. And, honestly, he might be the best tight end prospect I've ever seen on tape. He is that good. From what I can tell, if he doesn't get hurt and doesn't screw up, I have a Hall of Fame on him. I think he's going to be right up there with guys like Gonzalez and Gronkowski and Kelsey, and I think he's that good. He's got the potential to stretch the field. He can run you over. He can go around you. He can block. The biggest problem they're going to have with him is he can outrun any linebacker sent to cover him, and he can outmuscle any defensive back trying to keep up with him. He's just that good. And in fact, there were times where I thought this year for sure he'd go top 5. But the way that it's fallen, I don't think he's going to do that anymore. I still think he could be top 10, but probably won't be, just because there's nobody in the top 10 that really needs a solid tight end. There are other needs they have. But somebody who needs a solid tight end is going to get him, and they're going to be very happy. All right.
Fair enough.
Offensive tackles, I have 6.
I also have 6.
All right, you can start.
I'm very curious to see, because I've noticed that my list does not line up with a lot of people's lists. So we'll see.
We'll see
how much you agree or don't agree. So I will start at 6, and I will say 6 is Talis Fuaga, and I don't remember which school he goes to.
Oregon State.
It's Oregon State. Yep. And he's a really solid, big dude that I'm not sure. So my biggest thing is that I think he would be better as a guard potentially. Like, he's one of the few that are on this list. Like, there's 2 people on this list that I potentially could see as they're good tackles that could be good as guards as well. So, like, this is one of them, right? Like, he's a guy that I think
could move inside and
inside and be just as good, if not better, than being a tackle. Yeah. But he's just got a lot of raw talent. He's just a real big, strong dude. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. But when he does get beat, it does tend to be on the inside a little bit. It feels like if he has less room in the guard position, he can box people in and use his just brute power to just
Yeah.
force people to stay. Where I think as in a tackle position, he's got almost too much room to try to cover. He's not quick enough to always get to the sides. So that's why I have him. He's really good on the list. He's still really good as a tackle, but I think he'd be better as a guard.
Um, I also have Fuaga from Oregon State as my number 6.
Okay.
I think he's a very solid prospect. I think my biggest problem with him is he doesn't extend his arms into his blocks very well.
Right.
He tends to keep them pretty short and shortened up, and he doesn't get out and get the guy away from things. But he is quick with his steps. He tends to know where he needs to be. And as a guard, yeah, I could see that. He could be a really good pulling guard, in fact.
Yeah.
And he's fast enough to do that, and he's powerful enough to make a good punch at the point of impact.
Yep.
All right, number 5, who do you have?
So at 5, I've noticed that this is a guy that's significantly higher on most people's lists. I think it's just due to his physical prowess. The fact that he just seems like a big physical dude. People have him high on the list. I'm not quite as high as on him for a different reason. I have J.C. Latham at number 5. Um, he's from Alabama. I think my biggest issues with Latham is that he's kind of in the same field as Fuaga for me. I think he'd be better as a guard than a tackle. I think he'd be better in a more closed-in gap because he quite often gets beats on the edges that are doing more finesse. Like, they don't power through him. He's very good at standing his ground.
He doesn't get
but
moved easily.
He doesn't get moved easily, and even when it looks like he's gonna buckle, he just doesn't. But he does get beat by finesse spin moves all the time, especially on the edges. And it's one of those things where I think that only happens because he's not quite quick enough to keep up with those steps. And so if you put him into a guard where the other player is more contained, I think he would excel there over being a tackle. I think a lot of people want to put him in a tackle because he's like, what, 6'6", 300 some odd pounds or whatever. Like he's a big dude. And so people think that he would make for a good tackle because he just fills in that space. And he does, and I think that's why he gets away with it. But he's just not as quick as other tackles in that spot. And I think that's why I think I'd rather see him as a guard.
See, that sounds to me like you described my number 5, in my opinion. But I do see your problems with him. I still have him higher up because, oh God, that guy is just...
He is just very athletically gifted, yeah.
Yeah.
He's just a big
So at number
train.
5,
He's a brick house.
I have Amarius Mims out of Georgia.
Okay.
And I think he would do very well if you transitioned him inside. Because he does tend to get beat by the quicker guys, but he's an absolute road grader out there for, like, run blocking and stuff. He needs to work on his footwork and lateral movement, but if you move him inside, that matters a little bit less. Where you can box people in and just run over people with your power and push them out to the side. I feel like that would be where he would excel. Dude's a beast. But I just think that he needs a lot more work on that lateral movement and that footwork. I think he's going to be a solid tackle. I think he could be an all-pro guard if you moved him inside.
I don't necessarily agree, but I get it. I get it. At 4, I have Troy Fortuano. Fortuano?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how you say him. From Washington. And like, this is actually like the first one on this list that I'm like, this is a tackle. This guy is very clearly a tackle. He's got good footwork. Actually, he's got some of the better footwork actually out of a lot of tackles. Not the best, but really good footwork. Very quick. He shuts down people very quickly. He does not get beat very easily on the edges. Like, he just fills that spot and makes it very difficult to get around him. Now, he does still on occasion get beat, obviously, and when it does happen, it's typically, again, not a power move, it's more often a finesse, like spin. But it doesn't happen super often. He typically is pretty good at covering up and forcing good pass blocking. I think his bigger issues is run blocking at times is a little suspicious at moments, where you're just like, you just don't feel like pass blocking, bro? Like, or run blocking? Like, do you just not like running plays? Like, so there are moments where I'm just like, okay, that's a little weird. But more often than not, he looks good. He looks very solid.
I also have him at number 4, Troy Fuatanu from Washington. And again, decent all-around tackle. Um, with his run blocking, I think it's the direct run blocking that he doesn't like to do. But if
Yeah.
you're asking him to pull and pin and sweep, I think he feels a lot more comfortable doing that. He gets out and he really bulldozes people when you let him move out and around the pocket. He doesn't like to. He doesn't like to straight ahead run block. He wants to move out and lead.
Yeah, he
block.
wants to move out.
Yeah, that seems to be his bread and butter. He appears to like that. I think he bends just a little too much for my taste, but again, overall, I think this is the first guy I saw where I went tackle.
Tackle. Yeah, exactly. Yep, I agree with that.
Number 3.
Number 3. So this is where we're going to disagree. At number 3, I do have Amarius Mims. So it seems like we did swap our picks here.
Nope.
Huh? No?
No.
Really? You have Latham higher than that even?
Yep.
Jesus. My God. Okay. We clearly are very much seeing that differently too. That's okay.
That's okay.
See, what I see from Mims is I do see a tackle. He is a little slower at times, but his footwork is actually suspiciously good like better than you would think it would be with how slow he does come off at moments. Like he looks slow, but it isn't slow. Like that's probably the best way I can explain it from the tape that I've seen. He's got really good footwork. He doesn't fall on himself too often. It doesn't feel like he's getting beat that often, unless it's a finesse move that catches him quickly off guard, because he makes his first couple of steps very quick. So if you catch him off guard after that, that's where you're going to catch him. But those first couple of steps, he's really quite good at. And to me, that just tells me that, like, give him a little bit more time in that position to really stretch his arms, so to speak. And I think he'll fill that gap very nicely. I think he's shown progression through that in that position already. I think that he does fit the mold. He just needs a little bit more time there, but I think he will be really, really quite good.
All right. I debated about putting Latham here, by the way, but instead I went with Olu Fashanu from Penn State.
Okay.
Look, and it's not because I think he's a bad prospect. In fact, I think out of every tackle on my list, he's probably the most tantalizing and probably has the highest ceiling.
He's a weird one, but
he's very weird. And right now, he's a very rough, unfinished gemstone. But if you can find a way to turn him into that diamond that he should be, dude's going to be a rock out there. Now, I think he's just this huge upside. He blocks very well. He tends to read plays very well. He seems to know what his role is and where he's going to be. He extends into his blocks pretty good. My biggest problem with him is he doesn't always use the best footwork. It could be better. It allows him to get unbalanced a little bit. And he needs some work punching out into his run blocks. He doesn't burst out into them the way that I would like him to. But again, those are almost nitpicky, but overall, I think he's probably a solid tackle, and maybe even an all-pro tackle for the next decade once you buff that out.
Yeah, I can see that.
Number 2.
At number 2, I have Olu Fashianu. Pretty much all the same things we talked about already. I think he's really good. I think the most impressive thing to me is you brought up the point where, like, he does seem to get a little bit more wiggly than you'd like from a tackle, right? Like he gets hit up high, and it looks like he's gonna fall over and lose his balance, but he
looks
fucking
like a Weeble
doesn't.
Wobble.
Yeah, he doesn't. He just looks like he just punched one of those fucking
Weeble Wobbles.
like you were saying, the Weeble Wobbles. Yeah, like he just never falls over. It looks like he's going to, but he doesn't. It's impressive because it fakes you out all the time. Like I'm just like, this is the no. Like constantly, like it's actually quite impressive. And I think he's sneaky good. He's got a high ceiling. Um, but I think there's just one guy who's just better.
I have two guys that could be better. One of them I think is as good as he's going to get, sadly, but the other one I think is way better.
I think one is. I think this guy, if utilized properly, is going to be fantastic.
Oh, I
Forward.
agree with you, which is why I almost put him at 2. But
So
my number 2 is J.C. Latham out of Alabama. I know you and I don't agree on this, but
no.
more of the people seem to agree with me than with you on this.
That's true.
So what I look at when I see him is an absolute monster. Just this giant immovable wall out there at tackle. Now, does that mean that he doesn't get beat? No, he does get beat quite frequently by spins and swims. He needs to work a little bit on his arms and his actual arm technique to keep people from getting there. He also could use a little bit of work on his lateral foot movement to try to keep those quicker swim and spin guys inside where he wants them. He needs to work on that a little bit. But more often than not, I saw people run at him and just bounce off of him. Like, he's an absolute brick wall out there. I want to see him extend a little more into blocks, and I think that will help with swims, and I think that'll help with spins. But I think that if you get that all down, I think, again, very solid tackle for quite some period of time. Also, I don't disagree with you that if you moved him inside to guard, he could be very, very good at guard. So
Yeah.
I'm not actually going to dismiss that at all. And of course, we both have the same number 1 from Notre
number
Dame.
one is Notre Dame. Joe Alt.
Joe Alt.
There's like this guy. Like I brought up earlier. Like I talked about good run blocking. This guy's got excellent run blocking. He loves run blocking. That's his bread and butter is run blocking. He can pass block really well, but he loves to run block. You can just tell because he never stops tackling you. He keeps tackling you. Like he never stops. He never lets go of the block. The block is not done until the whistle is blown. He will throw your ass on the ground and keep you on the ground. Like he's just one of those.
It's time
guys.
to go home for him, Coach. He needed to catch the bus.
He's one of those guys. Like it's just.
His
he's a
dad
big,
was a
strong
dude like that too. So
yeah, he's just a big, strong dude. Never gives up on a play. He's always pushing forward. Like, you go to the right system, he'll be exceptional. Even to a wrong system, he'll still be really good. Like, this guy immediately upgrades your run defense right off the bat. Like, there's no questions. Like,
run offense.
If you want to be a running team, if you want to be a runner, you get Joe Alt. Like, there's no. Like, can you imagine Joe Alt with freaking Derrick Henry? Holy shit. He would always have a hole to run through. He wouldn't have to make his own holes anymore.
No. But Joe Alt's not going to last that long.
No, that's true. But you get my point. Like.
But yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. Son of John Alt, who played for the Kansas City Chiefs forever. His brother is Mark Alt, who plays in the NHL. So, very good pedigree there. And like I said, I literally have written down, probably the best tackle prospect since Joe Thomas.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, he's very intelligent, reads plays well. He's quick, he gets out, he loves to run block, he can pass block. Like, there's nothing this kid can't do at tackle. I think whoever gets him, this is the guy.
Agreed.
All right, guard. You have an extra guard that I do not.
I do. There are two. I have two guards on my list. I think it's really technically only one, but I put this other one on the list because, like, if you are really needing guard, I figured you might end up reaching for one.
Who it is.
I doubt it, but it is Christian Haynes out of Connecticut.
Okay, it's not horrible.
No, he's not. He's not bad.
More of a high round 2, but
yeah, I was gonna say I see him more as a 2, potentially even 3, high 3, mid 2, high 3 is kind of where I actually see him. But if you really need a guard, it's towards the end of the first round. You might reach for him if the other guard's already off the list, and the other one's even already still like questionable first. So I think Haynes works perfectly good. He's a big dude. I think what is he, 317 pounds. He just kind of fits in that gap and goes, all right, let's go. Like he's just a tank. He's a big dude. He's not perfect, but he's gonna do his job, and that's basically all you're gonna ask of him is just to do the bare minimums, and he'll do that.
I think we both have the same
We do. We
first
both have
guy.
the same first.
It's
Yep.
obviously Cooper Beebe from K-State.
Cooper Beebe. Yep.
What I say about him: quick and good footwork. I think he moves very well for a guard.
For a guard, surprisingly, yeah.
Yeah, for a guard.
And he's 322. Like he's a big dude that moves pretty well.
Yeah, he's a big dude that moves quite well. He identifies and picks up blitzes pretty good. He's got, quick hands. I feel like he needs to extend a little better on his arms, but that's a nitpick. I think if there's going to be a guard that's going to go in round one, it's going to be Cooper Beebe.
Probably. I would agree with that. I think I still have him as a high second,
Yeah,
low
but
first.
I think somebody,
So
particularly Minnesota at 23, could reach for a Cooper Beebe.
could reach for it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Yep, I can see it.
All right. Last one.
Yeah, the centers.
Yep, you've got three, so you might as well go ahead and start, and then I'll do the top one again.
I was gonna say I got three. To be fair, technically only one that I actually see as a first. The other ones are like if you needed a center and you're gonna reach for one. These two would be the ones that you could potentially reach for, and people would be like, "All right, I guess," kind of thing. So, number 3, I have from Georgia, Cedric Van Pran. He's pretty good at everything. Like he's got a good football IQ. He's pretty athletic. Got the good strength. But that's all I really gotta say about him. Like he's pretty good at everything, but he's not like exceptional. He's not a standout. He's just pretty good, which is fine. Like if all you need is just a serviceable, pretty good center, he fits your bill. There you go. If you really need a center because you don't have one, there you go. He'll fill that spot pretty nicely. The second guy who I think is a little bit better, but in the similar vein, is the center out of West Virginia, Zach Frazier. Zach Frazier, I think, is on a similar vein. Very good, very talented. I think he's just a little bit better than Cedric Van Pran. I think it's very close, to be honest with you. You could go with either one of them, and I think most people would be like, all right, fair enough, you got a center.
Yeah. But there is a clear-cut number one center.
There's a clear-cut number one center, yeah.
Jackson.
Out of Oregon.
Jackson Powers Johnson.
Jackson's Powers Johnson. Like he's the only one that's actually a bona fide. Yes, if you need a center in the first round, this is the one you grab.
Yeah, I'd say he's very fast. For a center.
For a center, he's
quick.
He's quick. He's big too.
Oh God, he's huge. But
he's
got
328 pounds.
Yeah, got great lateral movement. He even pulls as a center.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You know who he kind of reminds me of?
No.
Jason Kelsey.
Oh, okay. I guess I can see that a little bit.
Yeah, he's got that quick, that pull movement, and he's good at reading, very good at identifying the plays and figuring out where things are coming from. So, yeah, that Jason Kelsey thing in there, who, by the way, very recently, they had him on a podcast. They had, what's his name, who retired from Aaron Donald. And they said, is there anybody who was the team you hated playing against no matter what? And he said, Philly. Because Jason Kelsey and his fast ass, always coming over to double or triple team me, hike the ball, and immediately he's beelining for me.
Sounds about right.
Yep. So that is our breakdown of the offense. They could go in the first round in 2024. Do you have anything else?
No. Just got to get on the next list for defense.
I'm working on that as well. So, anyway, we do thank you all for putting up with that. If you watched all the way to the end, hey, why don't you give us a like and a subscribe? Because obviously you like listening to us talk about shit.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either. But you know what? If you do, you do. Maybe you learned something. We will be back next week with our defense lists. We will go over who we think could go in the first round next week on defense. On the week after that, we will be doing our first round mock draft. And then Thursday, I probably won't be up till Friday, but Thursday we're going to record ourselves reacting to the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft. So, now you know what's coming up. What we're going to say to everybody is, hey, we hope that all of you are awesome. We hope that all of you have a great week. We hope that whatever you want to do, you accomplish it, put your mind to it. We hope that all of you out there just, you know what, be awesome, be safe,